It's Conduit News Radio with Paul Harrell.
It's my pleasure. We've got Mr. John Milkovich back on the program. John, welcome, sir. How are you?
Paul, it's great to be with you. How are you today?
Doing very good. I got a copy of your book in the mail, so I appreciate you sending that to me. Your book, again, Robert Mueller, Errand Boy for the New World Order. The reason I want to have you on is because, we had you on one time before, and I thought it was a great segment. I really appreciated, kind of getting into the deep state nature of Robert Mueller. But, in the wake of what's happened over the weekend, I thought I'd love to get your reaction on this. You got Mueller, who is, well, I'll just kind of let you take it away. What's your reaction to the no collusion findings of the Mueller report?
Well, I mean, to God be the glory. This is a very, perhaps unsophisticated take, but, of course, I think sometimes the truth is better apprehended, Jesus said, by children than by educated sycophants and Pharisees. The reality is that many millions of America believe that God put Donald Trump in there to stop us from the Hillary Clinton and the Clinton abyss. I can't imagine where we would be if Hillary Clinton was in the West Wing right now. And I believe that God protected President Trump. It took a battle. It was some casualties. It was stressful. He was slandered and trashed 24/7 in the mainstream media for the last 22 months. But to God be the glory, he came out on the other side, and our republic is still intact.
Yeah. Well, and now, so this kind of refresh, just kind of give us a synopsis, because I also wanted to highlight the fact that, Mueller being as, in with the deep state as he was, and everybody was putting all of this hope, all of the left, the deep state, the media, the celebrities, putting all this hope in Robert Mueller. The fact that he didn't come back with anything is, I think, even, it really just goes to show there really wasn't anything there. So kind of real quick, a synopsis of this book, Robert Mueller, Errand Boy for the New World Order. I mean, this guy has his entire career. He has just been, one of the establishment, right?
Paul, you're exactly right. And he has been there to cover up every time he's been asked to. And, of course, the quick flyover of some of the corruption he's covered up is he was in Boston while Whitey Bulger was running the Boston Mafia, and Whitey Bulger was being protected by the Boston FBI. A bunch of people ended up dead as the Boston FBI protected mobster Whitey Bulger. The shocking thing is that FBI agents went so far as to participate in murder. Yes, that's a documented fact, not a conspiracy theory. FBI agents have been, at least 3 FBI agents have been implicated, indicted, and or imprisoned for murder. Where was Robert Mueller in the midst of all that? Well, geographically and chronologically, right in the middle of it. He was assistant U.S. attorney and then acting U.S. attorney in Boston for over 5 years, right in the middle of Whitey Bulger and the Boston FBI's homicidal reign of terror. What he said nothing, didn't lift a finger, saw something, did nothing. Of course, Pan Am 103, a colossal cover-up. Robert Mueller was in charge of the American part of the investigation of Pan Am 103, which resulted in the murderers getting off, which is Ahmed Jabril, a Palestinian terrorist who had the bomb built, Monster Al-Qasar, a Syrian drug lord that got the bomb on board, and then CIA officials that gave the go-ahead for the flight to take off, knowing that this is a flight from London to America, December 21st, 1988. Some CIA officials gave the green light for the flight to take off, knowing that it was carrying a bomb. And by the way, none of this is conspiracy theory. The Pan Am 103 tragedy has been the subject of at least 4 or 5 major books, which roundly criticize the investigation. The bottom line is the guilty parties all got off free. And by the way, federal agents in the international intelligence community, they knew almost immediately who had pulled off the crime. The people that I mentioned, Jabril, Al-Qasar, the Syrians, the Iranians paid for it, some crooked CIA officials. Mueller runs the investigation. All of the guilty parties walked. None of them spent 1 millisecond behind bars course, to complete the Mueller trifecta. A couple of Libyan intelligence officers get railroaded. And then it goes on from there, another 15 or 20 years of anthrax, 9/11, weapons of mass destruction. Yes, he told Congress under oath that there was weapons of mass destruction in the hands of Saddam Hussein.
That's funny. I mean, we got Glenn Greenwald, this liberal, this journalist guy, but I mean, he's done some great stuff and has won a Pulitzer. He comes out and says, "Hey, this Russia collusion thing is this generation's WMDs." I mean, they said that it's made headlines all across the country.
Well, yeah, and Paul, you're exactly right. There was not Russian collusion, and what was really clear going into it, at least if you listen to the people that knew what was going on, retired federal agents, William Binney, Ray McGovern. One was a longtime veteran of the NSA,
yes,
National Security Administration, and the other one was CIA. You may know them personally. I've read their works, some of their work. They said, look, Robert Mueller helped usher in a surveillance state in America. So, by the way, if anyone tells me he's a constitutionalist, we're going to have to open up back up the Constitution and look at the the congressional proceedings where Robert Mueller said the federal government should be allowed to spy on the cell phone, landline, emails, text, internet searches of every law-abiding citizen. But the fact is, as McGovern and Binney said, the government is already spying on the conversations of virtually everyone. They sent spies into the Trump campaign. So with all this spying and all this recording and all this storing our conversations and all this illegal anti-constitutional monitoring, which Mueller helped bring in, if McGovern and Binney said, if there was Russian collusion, they wouldn't even have to have an investigation where they're threatening people and putting them in jail for taxes and making false statements. They'd have a bunch of statements electronically stored in their digital spying kingdom.
Yeah. No, you're exactly right. And I think a lot of people thought, especially leading up to the 2018 elections, with all the leaks and everything else, if Mueller had something, it would have leaked out. We would have been disseminated widely because of all of that. We're talking with John Milkovich now. John is a Democrat state senator from Louisiana. He's the author of this book, Robert Mueller, Errand Boy for the New World Order. Now, John, I just wanted, when you go and you list all of these things that Robert Mueller has been involved in, it's no wonder that he was the guy they went to and they appointed. Okay, so Jeff Sessions, recuses himself. Then Rod Rosenstein appoints Robert Mueller. And everybody is happy. I mean, this guy was celebrated on the left. We have a special counsel now. He's going to protect us. He's going to basically undo the 2016 presidential election. They are very upset. I said this yesterday. They are furious that the people of Wisconsin gave Trump the popular vote in Wisconsin, the popular vote in Pennsylvania, the popular vote in Ohio, the popular vote in Florida. And they're furious about this, and they want to undo it, so they go with Robert Mueller. And even as entrenched as he is in whatever system, call it deep state, whatever you want to call it, he still didn't come back and find Russian collusion. And so now, John, the question is Trump right? I know Senator Rand Paul is out there saying this in headlines too. Is Trump right? Now we have to go investigate the investigators.
Absolutely. And listen, you've done a great job researching this, Paul, and understanding this. I can't improve on the narrative that you just provided. That is, yes, that's a very good 20,000 feet, 30,000 feet in the air, bird's eye view of what has happened the last 22 months. And actually going back before his appointment, so the last two plus years.
Well, so I guess just in terms of investigating the investigators, who needs to be investigated now? I mean, I saw James Comey. He's got some tweets out there that are very strange, very odd. Then you've got to think of this Andrew McCabe guy, that was talked about trying to get members of the cabinet to invoke the 25th Amendment. I mean, so do these guys? I mean, why do you think if there was no evidence to begin with of Russia collusion, it was all based on this phony dossier? Were they just trying to cover up the illegal spying on the Trump campaign? What are your thoughts?
Oh, listen, it was regime change. It was slow motion coup. It was a false flag operation, so people wouldn't be talking about all the crooked stuff that Hillary got away with, including the real Russian collusion, which was transferring 20% of America's uranium ore to Russia, in return for which the Clintons received hundreds of millions in the Clinton Cash Foundation. Absolutely, it was false flag. It was a diversion. It was a distraction. Donald Trump was the constitutionally elected 45th president of the United States. Let's get rid of him. But, we can talk about Robert Mueller's career background of cover-up collusion and corruption with Whitey Bulger and Pan Am 103 and BCCI. He helped with that cover-up. And 9/11, he flew the Saudis out of America within days of 9/11 so they could be investigated for their role in 9/11. He gave the false weapons of mass destruction meme. He advocated for a mass surveillance state. He covered up the anthrax mailing so the actual culprits walked and an innocent man ended up dead, supposedly of suicide, possibly from something worse. He's got his fingerprints on cover-up after cover-up. And my wife was just asking me last night, she said, well, I don't see any evidence that he's been involved in cover-ups. Well, that's because the only way you can get to that conclusion is by avoiding reading.
Mm-hmm.
But as my wife said, name one good thing that he's done. We've had 30 years of scandals exploding above and below sea level in America, whether it's arming the Mexican drug dealers with automatic weapons or sending the payment to Iran, to Whitewater, to Vince Foster, to Seth Rich, to Mena, Arkansas cocaine connection, to hostage, weapons for hostages. I mean, we've gone from the federal government has gone from one cover-up to another incident of corruption and collusion. And what has Mueller done about any of these things? And if you want to talk about it, the interesting question is what forced Mueller to stop? And I think because I don't see a moral reckoning.
Well, yeah. Let me game this out for you. I mean, well, first of all, the real Russian collusion, and I've had congressmen on this program that say this. I mean, people who were on the House Intel Committee back when Republicans were in control. The only Russia collusion that they found was between the DNC, Hillary Clinton, and Russia. Now, I actually think Robert Mueller specifically, now correct me if I'm wrong, John, but he's involved with this whole Uranium One situation. I mean, if you're going to investigate anything at this point, that's the smoking gun. And Robert Mueller, I mean, who knows? I mean, he may know that, that they have him, cornered on this. I mean, talk about Uranium One. What was Robert Mueller's role in the Clinton Uranium One scandal?
Well, basically, and of course, Dr. Corsi does a beautiful job of laying this out in Killing the Deep State. But just very simplified is that the Russians were determined to get their hands on America's uranium ore interests. And as Dr. Corsi points out, they started a racketeering, corruption, extortion, blackmail, bribery ring in the state of Maryland to help them acquire the leverage that they needed to get America's uranium ore interest. And to make a long story short, Hillary Clinton's proxy on the CFIUS, that's the committee that allows foreign investment, voted in favor of allowing these Russian interests to buy up our uranium. And the Russian interests did buy up our uranium. And guess what happened to the Clinton Cash Foundation? According to Dr. Corsi, $100 or $200 million got placed in the Clinton Cash Foundation by some of these same Russian interests that acquired the America's uranium ore. So what's the Mueller connection? Well, while this was going on, complaints were being lodged with the FBI that, look, there's a racketeering operation centered in Maryland, and the Russians were using this to blackmail, extortion, bribery, suitcases full of cash. Well, Guess what the FBI did? Nothing. Guess who was head of the FBI while this was going on? Robert Mueller. Who was the head of the FBI when people were complaining and informing about this racketeering operation? Robert Mueller. And the operation was centered in the state of Maryland. And, of course, we know who the U.S. attorney was operating in the state of Maryland at the time that the Russians were using their racketeering extortion ring to get the uranium interest, a man named Rod Rosenstein. So, yes, and, of course, as Dr. Corsi points out, there's apparently a State Department cable pursuant to which Hillary Clinton ordered Robert Mueller to deliver a small sample of highly enriched uranium to Russian officials on a Russian runway. Well, that's government documents, and Robert Mueller's never explained that. So, yeah, there's some Russian collusion that went on.
Mm-hmm.
It was committed by the people that were behind the investigation that targeted President Trump.
So, I guess a soft conclusion, just from this interview, John Milkovich, is they did all of this. They used all their assets in the media. They created a phony scandal. They distracted this nation for 2 years. They might have even won Congress or the lower chamber, the House, because so many people thought Trump might be a Russian agent. They accused him of treason. They did all of this to try to save themselves, because if anyone who is committed to justice and the rule of law and having it apply equally, Rod Rosenstein, Robert Mueller, Hillary Clinton, I mean, these people, they look like they're all criminals, that they've committed serious crimes against this country.
Well, once again, Paul, you're absolutely right. You're talking with a lot of common sense, so that people that that are. I'm kind of a simple person, so I can understand what you're saying. But absolutely, this investigation was a diversion to provide cover for the real crimes that were committed by the Clintons, and Mueller has been involved in cover-up after cover-up, including the real Russian collusion, where they gave Russia our uranium interest. And to me, so number one, it was a diversion. Number two, as you know, and you pointed out in your show over and over, this was an attempt to remove Donald Trump. And then let's go to point three. What was it about Donald Trump that they really don't like? It wasn't the Russian collusion, which is a phony, now discredited allegation. That was always a cover. What they really don't like about Donald Trump is he's not part of the club. Donald Trump is an outsider. And if you want to look back into American history to identify presidents that were outside, and it sounds almost, Paul, it almost sounds counterintuitive. How can you have a president who is an outsider? Well, there are people that get elected that actually want to advocate for America. They're not part of the establishment. Here's some great examples. Ronald Reagan, Abraham Lincoln, John Kennedy. By the way, they were all either assassinated or the subject of assassination. In fact, Ronald Reagan was shot. They tried to kill him. Donald Trump is an outsider. He's not part of the Bush, Clinton, Obama, Comey, Rosenstein, Mueller club. He's not a skull and boneser. He's not a part of the Illuminati. He was well educated, but he did not go to Yale, where they have these occultic meetings in the basement of this gray monolithic structure and all this weird stuff. And of course, let me be clear, Mueller was a Princeton man, not a Yale man. But there's a club. And Donald Trump ain't part of it. And they can't handle somebody who's not of their club. He's not taking orders from the Council on Foreign Relations. He's not being dictated to by the United Nations. He's actually fighting for America. He's doing some out-of-the-box, outsider-type things like standing up for the unborn, opposing abortion, opposing the destruction and demolition of Americans' borders, standing up against weaponized immigration, where they're bringing drug dealers, terrorists, and bombers into America, saying we will fight ISIS to protect the Muslims in the Mideast, but we're not going to allow Muslim terrorists into America without even checking their resume. And all the trade deals that made people rich around the world, including people that were possibly on the platform when Donald, the famous statement he made when he was inaugurated. He says, "Look, there's people sitting on this platform or dais that were making profits. It was their victories and the loss of American working families. Donald Trump is an outsider from jump. They couldn't handle it. They were willing to do anything they could to take him out of office.
John Milkovich, I appreciate it. You're a Democrat state senator from Louisiana. Your book, Robert Mueller, Errand Boy for the New World Order. It's always great to have you on. I want to do this follow-up interview in light of this no collusion news. It's great to meet you, sir. I'd love to do it again sometime.
Paul, you've got it figured out. Just don't get tired. This war isn't over. We need all of our patriots to step up to the plate, and thank God for what you're doing, my friend.
Hey, I appreciate you, John. I appreciate you saying that. God bless you. John Milkovich, everybody. Again, Robert Mueller, Errand Boy for the New World Order. It's a book. You can check it out.